Good afternoon. My name is Pooria Taabbodi. I'm Microsoft and VoIP trainer, and I'm also supervisor and technical manager of network SSTP company. Today, I want to show you how to implement SSTP and OVPN on a MikroTik router board. So please be with me. I hope it's be informative and useful for you. Before we are starting this implementation, we need to know some basic concepts about the encryption. As you know, for unlocking or even locking anything like a door, you need something like a keys. Okay? This applies to computer networks too. In a computer network, we use two methods for encryption: asymmetric method and symmetric method. In a symmetric method, we use the same key to encrypting and decrypting our data, or to locking and unlocking our data. But in an asymmetric method, we use two different keys for encrypting and decrypting. For example, we encrypt with one key and we decrypt it with another key. We call these keys public key and private key. Public key is the key that we distribute, public key is the key that we distributed in whole the network, and all the computers in the network receive it. But private key is the key that is dedicated for our server, and we never distribute it in whole the network. One of the most common asymmetric encryption method is using computer certificates. In this method, we need to provide a certificate from a well-known CA, and after that importing it to our local computer personal certificate store. After importing, we can use it for encrypting our data, and even we can use it for signing our data. But what is exactly a CA, and why should we provide a certificate from a well-known CA? Well, CA, or certificate authority, is an entity that all computers in the network trust it. And if it's issued any certificate, all computers in a network trust this certificate too. But for this trusting, I mean to trusting to this issued certificate, we need to import our public key, our CA public key, to our trusted certificate authority list in our client computers. I will show you later how to export this public key and how to import this public key in your trusted certificate authority list. Now let's see how certificates work and how they help us to encrypt our data. Imagine that your computer wants to have a secure communication to a server like Gmail, okay? At first, Gmail website should provide a certificate for itself. So it sends a request to a well-known CA and provide a certificate for itself. But after that, your computer should send a request to the server. For example, you typed in your URL address bar https, S means secure, //www.gmail.com. When you press the enter button, your computer sends a request to Gmail website, and Gmail website send back a response that is included Gmail's certificate and Gmail's public key. Now your computer has Gmail's public key, so it can use it. But before using this public key, your computer should check some basic parameters on this certificate. For example, it should check the validity of this certificate, it should check the expiration of this certificate, or it should check the CNAME, or in some cases, subject name of this certificate. CNAME or subject name should be equal to address that you typed in your URL address bar, okay? So it's really important that you type address correctly, okay? Else your connection will be failed. But after checking these parameters and after passing these steps, your computer generates a one-time password key. and encrypt this one-time password key with Gmail's public key and send it back to Gmail server. Now Gmail server decrypt this package with its private key, okay? It encrypted by public key, and now it's decrypted by private key. It's asymmetric method, okay? Now when Gmail's website decrypt this package, it has the one-time password too, so they can establish a secure communication with each other, okay? This is the how certificates work and how they help us to encrypt our data. Now, if you have any question until now, please ask me. Do you have any question until now? Yeah? Anybody? No questions? Okay. Let's go to implement SSTP and OVPN on a MikroTik router board as a server and Microsoft Windows as a client. Imagine that our network topology is something like this. It means that we have some local resources that are connected to our router, and our router is connected to the internet, and finally we have some remote access client that wants to have access to these local resources by any type of VPN, for example, by SSTP or OVPN. Before I continue, I should say that I believe all of you know the basic configuration of the MikroTik. For example, all of you know how to configure an IP address or set an admin password. So I skipped this basic configuration, and I started from the SSTP client configuration, okay? As I mentioned earlier, valid time is really important for issuing and for using a certificate. So as a first step, we need to set our clock, our router clock, and set an SNTP or NTP server to synchronize our time of our router. After that, we need to create two certificates. So under certificate, under system and certificate menu, we can create two certificates according to these pictures. It's really easy. Just here we have one important point that is the common name, or in some cases it's called subject name. Common name or subject name, as I said before, is the name or is the address that you use it as a destination address, okay? So you should to type this address correctly, because if you don't type it correctly, your connection will be failed, okay? After you creating the certificates, you should to sign these certificates. Because our CA is the root CA, we don't need any other CA. Root CA means the CA that is on the top level, and there is no other CA that it's be a subordinate CA, okay? It's on the top level. Root CA means it's the CA that is on the top level, okay? And now, because your CA is the root CA, we don't need any other CA to sign it and to confirm this certificate, its certificate. So we just need to import the CA CRL host and please sign. But what is the CRL and what is the CRL host? CRL, or Certificate Revocation List, is the list that it's contained all certificates that revoked by any reason. For example, it contains the certificate that revoked by for key compromising, or it's contain the certificates that it's finished their expiration time or something like this, okay? And the CRL host is the point that you or your CA upload this CRL list there, and other computers, other client computers can download this list and check the certificate that is presented by some service, for example, Gmail, okay? As you remember, I said that your computer checked the validity of the certificate. It checked the certificate by this list and match if it has if it found any matched option or what? Match. Okay. It failed the connection. But finally, after we type this IP address or this address, we should to please sign. Sorry. Okay. When you sign in your CA certificate, you can use this certificate to sign in your server certificate. I mean OVPN or SSTP server certificate. So just right-click on or double-click on your server certificate and use this CA certificate to sign in the certificate and please sign. Okay? Now, we need to export this CA public key and import it to your Trusted Root Certificate Authority on your client. So just right-click on this CA certificate and select the export option. After exporting, you can see the exported file under the file folder, okay? And you can drag and drop this exported file on your client desktop computer to download it. As you see here, I download it here. After that, we should to type the command certlm.msc. It will open the local certificate console on your client, and you easily can use and you can easily right-click on a Trusted Root Certificate Authority and use the import option to import this public key certificate. Now that you import this key, you can, or in other words, your computer trust this CA and all its certificate that issued by this CA. Okay, now we come back to our router to continue our configuration. Okay, now as a second step, we need to set an IP pool or provide an IP pool to assign IP addresses to remote client computers. So under IP pool menu, we create an IP pool. After that, we need to create a PPP or triple P profile to import, apply the configuration to remote client computers. As you see here, under PPP and under the profile tab, we can create an IP pool, a PPP profile, and we can use the IP pool that we created before as a remote address. And finally, we need to type a local DNS server to resolve our local resources name, because as you know, your remote computers want to access to your local resources, and they need they need to resolve the local resources name. So we type the local resources. So we type the local DNS server here. After that, as you know, for connecting to our router, we need a username and password. So under PPP or triple P and secret menu, we create a username and password. And if we want to use this username and password to connecting by SSTP and OVPN together, we set the service option to any. And finally, we set the profile that we created before in profile option or in profile console. Now that we create an IP pool and a PPP secret and a PPP profile, we need to enable SSTP and OVPN services. As you know, SSTP and OVPN services are disabled by default. So under interface menu, interface tab, with pressing the SSTP server button, we can enable these services. As you see here, also we can set the default profile, the profile that we created before, and we can set the authentication method. As you know, SSTP support MSCHAP v2, MSCHAP or Microsoft Challenge Handshaking Authentication Protocol. Okay, so because the MSCHAP v2 is more secure, I selected the MSCHAP v2 to connecting to our router. Finally, we should set the certificate that we created before for our server. Okay, now we can press OK. Before we pressing OK, we have another option, verify client certificate. If you want to have a mutual authentication, it means if you want your client computers check the identity of your server and vice versa, your server check the identity of your client computer, you should check this option. But if you select this option, you need to provide a certificate for your client computer too, okay? So if you don't need it, just don't enable this option. Okay, now as a SSTP, we need to enable OVPN server. So under OVPN server button, we check the enable button, and we select the default profile and server certificate here. As you see here, we have another option, require client computer client certificate, that is equal to verify client certificate. It means that in OVPN connection, if you need to have a mutual authentication, you should to check this option, and again provide a certificate for your client too. Now, as a last step, in a server configuration, we need to enable ARP and change the ARP method of interface that is connected to your local resources to ARP proxy. It will help your remote access clients to achieve your local resources MAC address, okay? Now that all configuration of SSTP and OVPN on a MikroTik routable or on our server finished, we should to configure a client, SSTP client configuration on our Microsoft Windows, for example. So under Network and Sharing Center here, with using the set up a new connection or network link, we can create a VPN connection, and we can to type our destination address here. I repeat it. This address should be equal to CNAME that you typed on your certificate, else your connection will be failed, okay? Now, finally, we should press the create button. After creating, if you like, it's not mandatory. If you like, you can take a properties from this connection, and under security tab, you can change the type of the VPN to secure socket tunneling protocol or SSTP. It will help you to connect to your router or to connect to your server more quickly, okay? Because if you select the automatic method, it should check all the methods and all the protocols, and finally it's connected by SSTP. So it's obvious that if you select the SSTP at first, it's connected more quickly. Now, if you enter your username and password that you created under your PPP secret, you will connect it to your router, and your local resource or your local resources ping will be replied. This is the SSTP connection, okay? But what about OVPN connection configuration? What should we do? For OVPN configuration or for OVPN client configuration, we need to install some OVPN application like OpenVPN GUI. When you install this application, it will provide a text-based sample configuration file. As you see here, there is something like this, and you can change or modify some basic configuration according to your server configuration. For example, you can type your destination address here and finally save this sample configuration file. After that, you can use this sample configuration file to connect into your router by using your username and password, by entering your username and password. Now, as you see, after entering username and password, you connected to your server, and your local resources ping will be replied. It's really easy, okay? It's really easy to implementing SSTP and OVPN. This is the configuration of our implementation of SSTP and OVPN on a MikroTik router board. Now, if you have any question, I'm here to answer you. Do you have any questions? Yeah? You? Sorry, I can't listen you. Let's yes. CRL certificate list or CRL host should be accessible from your client computers, okay? So accessible by client computers, yes. Until the client's computer can download this CRL list. It's really important. Else you can change your registry configuration and ignore this checking. Okay, in Microsoft you can, if you Google it, you find the registry address or registry hive, and you can change this option to ignore the checking CRL certificate list. Okay. Do you have any question? Okay. If you don't, okay. Any other question? No question? Okay. Thank you very much. I'm really sorry for the problem that we have at first, because I should to use an adapter to change the VGA to HDMI. Thank you again, and I hope you have a good time and enjoy your mom.